The 2024-2025 FAFSA season is here, and this FAFSA may not look like the FAFSA of years past. If you've completed the FAFSA in the past, you might be used to terms like the expected family contribution or the student aid summary, the SAR. The new FAFSA actually changes that. There's no longer going to be an expected family contribution. It'll be the student aid index. And at the end, when you submit it, you're not going to receive a SAR, you're just going to receive a FAFSA submission summary. Those are small changes, but throughout the application, if you've done it before, you might notice other changes as well. We're going to walk through the 2024-2025 FAFSA to give you an idea of what to expect and what type of questions you'll see there. We'll walk through the ways to get help or assistance while you're completing the FAFSA so you can make this process as easy as possible. Make sure to keep an eye on advisors.com for your updated guides and information on completing the FAFSA, and make sure you follow us on social media for the latest updates. We're on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. So make sure to subscribe with us so you are ready for the 2024-2025 FAFSA. So we're going to be going through a demonstration of the 2024-2025 FAFSA. This is to give you an idea of what to expect, but please note that this is a demonstration. This may not cover every scenario that you may need or may not answer all your questions, but it'll help you get a sense of some of the changes and what's new with the FAFSA for this FAFSA cycle. When you're logging into the FAFSA, you will need an FSA ID. Think of that as a username and password. When I'm talking about the FAFSA, the owner is going to be the student. Even if you're a parent or a spouse, the owner of the FAFSA is going to be a student. When I'm referencing you or the owner of the FAFSA, it will be the student who will be using this FAFSA in order to get their financial aid award letters from their school. If you are inputting information into a FAFSA, if you're a parent or a spouse, you will need your own FSA ID. This year, all FAFSA contributors are required to have their own FSA ID, which is a username and password in order to complete their sections. In the past, logging in under the student's FSA ID, you could go through and update certain sections as a parent. However, this year there will be a requirement that every FAFSA contributor has an FSA ID. If you need an FSA ID, you will need to go to studentaid.gov. This is Federal Student Aid's website, and they're an office of the U.S. Department of Education. You would go over here to log in or create an account. If you don't have an account, you want to hit Create Account. Here it'll explain what you need in order to do that. You can click Get Started. It'll let you know that you can use this account login to log in to your FAFSA form, or as a FAFSA contributor to log in and provide information on a FAFSA form. It'll let you complete other forms as necessary, and what you'll need is a social security number and a phone number or an email address. You would click Get Started. You would go ahead and fill out the information. Each account must be associated with a social security number. There cannot be multiple accounts created under the same social security number. If you do have an FSA ID and you haven't used it, maybe one of your parents made one for you in the past, you will need to use that FSA ID and recover or create a new password if that already exists. When the 2024-2025 FAFSA is released, and beginning in December 2023, parents who do not have a social security number will be able to create an FSA ID. In the past, this was a requirement. However, there is a way to go ahead and create an FSA ID even if you don't have a social security number. Parents who don't have a social security number in the past might have run into an obstacle where they were required to complete the FAFSA under the student's FSA ID, and at the very end, print the signature page and mail it in to complete the FAFSA process. With the 2024-2025 FAFSA, that will be changing. Anytime you have a question, you can always click here on the question marks to show here. This has yet to be updated, so we're not going to see the page that will be available to create an FSA ID without a social security number. But just know that that change is coming for any parents who don't have a social security number. Once you have your FSA ID, you want to type it in and log in to your FAFSA application. The page will look similar to this. Once you put in your information, it's going to let you know that you have some options to start a form or edit an existing form. And if you are still looking to make edits to the 2023-2024 FAFSA, you can go ahead and do that. But for today, we're going to be working through the 2024-2025 FAFSA, and we're going to be starting a new form. This edit button exists because you do not have to complete the FAFSA in one sitting. You do have the ability to save your information, log in later, and continue to complete the application. In addition, your parent may have started an application for you, and you would have to go in and edit from that point once that application's already been started for you. I'm going to go ahead and click Start a New Form. Here, we want to identify who we are. We are going to be the student completing the application and going through the process. There's going to be some really helpful information right at the beginning. They're relatively short videos to give you an overview of what to expect and what will be coming, and to let you know what type of federal financial aid is available to you. So it may be worth it for you to go through and listen to the overview before you get started. We've talked a bit about FAFSA contributors as we got started with this process. Anyone who will be providing information on a student's FAFSA will be considered a FAFSA contributor. They're not the owner of the FAFSA, but they will be contributing information. Contributors will need to complete their own section, so they will need to log in on their own to do that. If you're completing this and your parent or your spouse does not have an FSA ID, you will be given information on how to invite them and how to instruct them to create an FSA ID. It's always best to try to get your FSA ID before you complete this process. The FSA ID, because it does have a social security number check and confirmation, it might take a few days before you actually get that username and password. So it's always recommended that you go ahead and create that a few days ahead of time if you don't already have one. Throughout the form, you'll see different ways information is being earmarked for additional information if you need more. Just pointing down, this arrow expands to let you know different types of information that you will need while you complete the FAFSA. If you've completed the FAFSA in the past, some questions have changed and some information required of you has changed as well. So just review this list and get yourself situated and ready to go with what you will need in order to complete the form. The form is estimating that it will take about an hour for you to complete. Everybody's situation is different. Everyone will have their own completion time. It's been said that some people will be able to complete the FAFSA in about 10 minutes. Others, it might take a little bit longer, but everyone's situation is going to be a little bit different and everybody will have to go ahead and work through the application. That's why we always recommend, as soon as the application is released, to go ahead and get started. Even if you can't do it all in one sitting, save your progress, figure out what information you need or any obstacles that you need to get through to then go ahead and continue on. This next screen, this summary before you even get started, is just letting you know what you can expect. It's important to review this because a lot of questions come from submission and not understanding what happens in the process after you submit your FAFSA form. The FAFSA form is offered by the U.S. Department of Education. It's the owner of the FAFSA form. However, your information will be sent to each school that you put on your school list. Your school will be the entity that will offer you your financial aid award. Each school will have their own financial aid award. Each school's financial aid award may be different. Each school may classify the same types of financial aid in a different way. So it's always extremely important to understand who your points of contact are. Your FAFSA form, if there's issues, technical issues getting through the form, as in the site's not working, it's crashing, it's not saving information, you're going to contact the U.S. Department of Education for technical assistance. If you submit the FAFSA form and you're concerned about your financial aid award, who's going to give you your financial aid award, when you will receive it, you will go to each school that you're interested in applying to, that you listed on the school list, which we will see later in the FAFSA form. So you go through the application, hit submit, everything's signed and sent off. It will be processed in a few days. Then you'll receive a FAFSA submission summary. This used to be known as the Student Aid Report, the SAR, but now they're calling it exactly what it is. It's your submission summary. The information you included on your FAFSA form will be provided in a summary that you should review to ensure accuracy. One thing you may notice, if any information is transferred from the IRS, it will be masked on your submission summary, and that is for your protection and the protection of your FAFSA contributors. Your submission summary will also now include your student aid index. This used to be known as your expected family contribution, and this is the number that your school will take in order to determine your financial aid award. The EFC in the past could go as low as 0. The student aid summary can be a negative number. This does not mean that you will get money back because these are index numbers. These are not actually dollar numbers. However, many families, many students and parents feel as though the student aid index, or previously the expected family contribution, will be the amount that they're expected to pay to go to school, and that is not necessarily true. The student aid index is used by your schools, each school that you have on your school list, to compare your financial situation with all the other students who have also completed FAFSA forms and determine the best way to award you financial aid based on their own resources. There's some set knowns. Federal aid will be based on the information you provided on the FAFSA. There's a few programs like the FSEOG grant and the work study, federal work study, that will be based on a combination of federal funds and school funds. It's called campus-based programs. So those numbers may fluctuate between students, but things like your Pell Grant and your direct loans will be based on your eligibility and your annual limits, and also the school's cost of attendance. So those might be similar across all financial aid awards. However, that's how that student aid index will be used, and the school will then go ahead and create that form. So let's get started. Once you review the information, click Start FAFSA Form, and it'll bring you through. It'll go through the information you've already provided for your FSA ID. This is the demographic information. But in order to create your FSA ID, you needed to provide some of the demographic information. Your name, your date of birth, your social security number, and your contact information, your email or your phone number. You will also see permanent mailing address. You want to make sure this is up to date just in case there's any type of communications that need to be sent to you via mail. So confirm this is all complete. If there's any issues with your demographic information on the top, you'll have to update that on your FSA ID account. If there's changes to your permanent mailing address, you actually have the ability to make those edits right away on the form. I'm going to click Continue. Your state of legal residence. If you are a student living in New York, but you decide to go to school in Massachusetts, your state of legal residence is likely still New York. So you just want to make sure that this is accurate based on your current situation. There are some situations where students are from New York, but decide to move permanently to where they're attending school. And there's always some strategy behind that to become a legal resident of that state in order to get in-state tuition or other in-state assistance. However, you just want to make sure you answer this question based on your own personal situation and what is the most accurate. And you're going to go ahead and put in the date that you became a legal resident of that state. They're only asking for the month and the year. Fill that in and hit Continue. That date is important because for in-state aid or state aid offered through the state of legal residence, They may require you to be a resident for a certain period of time before you qualify for certain in-state tuitions or state grants. The next section is going to bring you through the transfer of your federal tax information and the consent required, not optional, that you must give to the U.S. Department of Education in order to complete the FAFSA form. Every single FAFSA contributor and owner of a FAFSA will need to consent for the IRS to disclose your federal tax information with the U.S. Department of Education for purposes of the FAFSA. Federal tax information you'll see commonly referred to as FTI. This is a requirement. In the past, you might have remembered things like the IRS data retrieval tool, IRS DRT, which was optional. It is not optional. It is required. So read through the disclosure and to understand what you are consenting to when you're using this electronic application. There's a few bullets here that explain what you're consenting to as well. If you do not provide consent and approval, you will not be eligible for federal student aid, including grants and loans. What that means is the U.S. Department of Education will not be able to determine or complete the FAFSA application on your behalf if you do not authorize this consent. It also states that as well in the terms in here, that if there's no consent given, they will be unable to calculate your eligibility for federal aid. So you go ahead and you will sign this. You're electronically using your FSA ID, that username and password, the most important username and password in this whole process, that will give you that consent here. If you look, there's some FAQs here as well. Everyone must provide consent, even if you do not file a federal tax return. That's incredibly important as well. You still have to give the consent even if you did not file your taxes or you didn't file a U.S. tax return. If your spouse, so if you're married and you have a spouse and they need to provide information, they're a FAFSA contributor, they will also need to provide consent and approval. For students, if your parent, your FAFSA parent, is not your biological parent, it's their spouse, they would also need to provide approval as well. And then it goes over a little bit more about what happens once you give consent. Your tax information will be transferred into your FAFSA. And if you decline, we went over that as well. All right, so you want to go through your personal circumstances. The next part is going to be your personal circumstances, so you want to continue through. It's going to ask you, are you currently, as of the day that you're completing the FAFSA, single, never married, married, not separated, married, separated, divorced, or widowed? It's very specific that it's as of the date you're completing the FAFSA, what is your status, your marital status. If you're engaged to be married in 4 months, the answer today is that you're single, especially if you were never married before. For this demo, we're going to go through with single, never married for our student account. Next, you're going to explain what your college plans will be in the 2024-2025 school year. What will be your college grade level? For this demonstration, we're going to choose first year. When the student begins the 2024-2025 FAFSA year, will they have their first bachelor's degree? For this scenario, we're going to hit no. The reason this question is asked, there are certain types of federal aid, like the federal Pell Grant, that are only eligible to students who have yet to earn a bachelor's degree. So if you're going back for a second bachelor's, or you're going back to school to learn a new trade after you already earned a bachelor's degree, you would hit yes. But that would let the FAFSA know and trigger the FAFSA that your Pell eligibility is likely. It's going to trigger a flag essentially saying that you no longer have Pell eligibility for your plans in the 2024-2025 school year, but other types of aid may be available. For this scenario, we're going to choose no. Our student that we're demoing is going to be a high school student entering college for the first time. Continuing on with personal circumstances. These questions are actually what we know as dependency status questions. They're not specifically identifying that they're dependency status questions, but that's what they are. There are more dependency status questions than are visible here. However, the electronic FAFSA has skip logic, so it will not ask you questions it already knows the answer to. For example, when you created your FSA ID, the FAFSA already knows your date of birth. So it's not going to ask you if you were born before January 1st, 2001. So you want to go through and read each question in this personal circumstances carefully. If you have a personal circumstance that could affect your dependency status for FAFSA purposes only, this is how that will be flagged. So you want to read through it. Being on active duty for the U.S. Armed Forces other than training, if you're a veteran, if you have children or other dependents who receive more than half of your support now and will receive more than half of your support for the academic year of 2024 to 2025. Situations where you may have been an orphan or a ward of the court or in foster care, or if you were emancipated, or if you have a legal guardian, you want to go through and answer that accurately. If none of these apply for this demo, none of these will apply, we're going to identify that it does require an answer, can't leave it blank. You're going to go through and hit continue. There will be an additional question about another circumstance, and this is just flagging if you are an unaccompanied. There is one more circumstance that they do separate to ensure that the question is answered correctly, and it's asking you anytime after July 1, 2023, if you were unaccompanied, of homeless or self-supporting and at risk of being homeless. You want to answer this accurately as well. For this scenario, we're going to choose no and hit continue. Now, there's some unusual circumstances that could qualify a student for what's known as a dependency override. A dependency override for FAFSA purposes only could affect the type of financial aid that you're eligible for. As a dependent undergraduate student, you have direct loan limits that will be less than what an independent undergraduate student would be eligible for. So if you have a dependency override from dependent to independent, you could be eligible for more assistance in the direct loan program. In addition, independent undergraduate students are not required to provide financial information of their parents, making it so the form can be completed just with student information. So you want to read through this if you know if there's something going on with your family situation or something you're currently experiencing that essentially would make it dangerous for you to stay in contact with your parent or your parent that needs to provide information for the FAFSA. You want to go through and answer this accurately and correctly. If you click yes and continue, we'll briefly see what you can see. You'll be giving what's known as a provisionally independent student, so it'll allow you to complete the FAFSA without providing parent information. However, you will need to contact your school's financial aid office and provide documentation of your circumstance. Solely clicking yes will not complete the process. It would allow you to complete and submit the FAFSA without parent information now, but you do have to follow up. If you don't follow up and complete the process, it will not be considered a successful submission of your FAFSA, and they will not be able to estimate your aid until you complete what is needed. But let's go back for this demo. We are going to choose no and go to the next section. Based on the way you answered your personal circumstances or those dependency status questions, the FAFSA has now determined that you are a dependent student. That means you do have to provide your parent information on the FAFSA form. Your parent's information will be required in order to determine how much aid you're eligible for. If your parents are unwilling to provide the information, but you don't have one of those unusual circumstances, but you do have an obstacle in getting your parents' information, you do have the ability to request only direct unsubsidized loans as financial aid from the federal government. State aid and any aid from your school will depend on their resources and their eligibility requirements, but you can provide your information on the FAFSA and not provide your parents' information, but you will only be eligible for direct unsubsidized loans. For this scenario, we're going to choose no, we do not want to apply for direct unsubsidized loans only. We want to be considered for Pell Grants and FSA grants, direct subsidized and unsubsidized loans. All right, now the FAFSA is going to ask you to give a bit of information of the student's parents. Now, who is the FAFSA parent? These questions are set up to help guide you through a bit more in years past if you have a specific situation at home that is not as clear-cut as other students could have. So you just want to read through the questions. Are your parents married to each other? Answer the question appropriately, yes or no. We click no. It will ask you, do your parents live together? They don't have to be married, but are they living together? You can click yes or no. For this scenario, we're going to click no. The question will now be, did one parent provide more financial support than the other parent over the last 12 months? This is where you will answer the question based on your situation over the past 12 months. If your parents gave you exactly an equal amount of financial support, or they did not support you financially, you would answer no. And then the FAFSA parent that you would choose to include in your FAFSA will be the parent with the greater income or assets in the next question. If you are not sure, have a discussion with your parents ahead of time to determine who gave you the most financial support over the past 12 months. But there is a scenario here if your parents did not support you and you're still required to provide parent information, which is a very common scenario. You would go ahead and click no, and then provide the information of the parent with a greater income or assets in there. So for this particular scenario in this demonstration, we're going to click yes. Now for that FAFSA parent, the parent who provided you the most financial support over the last 12 months, that's going to be your FAFSA parent in this demonstration. Now it's going to ask you if that parent is remarried. You would go ahead and answer here yes or no. For this scenario, in this demo, we're going to choose no. So it's going to clearly identify here who the parent is, who your FAFSA parent is. It's going to say, based on your answers provided, only answer questions based on this parent's information. They are not remarried, so you will not need to include their spouse information. If they were remarried and they had a spouse, they would need an FSA ID, and they would also provide information on your FAFSA application. Now you have the opportunity to invite your parent to complete or provide information on your FAFSA. Just because they're providing information on your FAFSA does not require them or make them responsible in any way to pay for your education. It's great if you have parents that are happy and willing to help you finance your education, but they are not required to in any way. This is your education and your choice to go to college. Everyone's own family situation is different, financials are different, feelings towards higher education are different. But even if you're providing their information, they are not responsible to pay for it, but their information will be considered in determining your student aid index at the end. So you're going to go ahead and provide your parent's full name. If you have a situation where your parent does not have a social security number, you have the ability to click here as you complete this form. Now, when the 2024-2025 FAFSA is released, parents who do not have a social security number will be able to create an FSA ID. And then when it's time for them to provide information on the FAFSA, the social security field will be grayed out. It will not be a field that they can change, because from their FSA ID account, they will know that there is no social security number. In the past, we used to tell people to put in all zeros if they don't have a social security number. That's not how it will be handled on the 2024-2025 electronic FAFSA. Remember, the citizenship status or the eligible non-citizen status will belong to the student. The status of the parent does not matter when it comes to financial aid eligibility. However, the financial information provided by the parent will be used to calculate the FSA. So we're going to go through and fill out the names of the parent. You'll want to go ahead and put in the first and last name of your parent, their date of birth, then type in your social security number. Type in your parent's social security number, their email address, then you're going to send an invite. It's going to let you know that an invite has been sent to Toby Smith, your parent. Then you're going to hit continue. Then you're going to go ahead and answer your student demographic questions on your own. These are research purposes only questions. The way these are answered will not affect your eligibility, they won't be used in your calculation, and it won't be shared with any schools. This is strictly for research purposes only for federal student aid, the U.S. Department of Education. We're going to go ahead and answer the question that the student's gender is male, and then you do have the ability for student race and ethnicity to answer here. Select all that apply, but if you prefer not to answer, you can go ahead and prefer not to answer your ethnicity, your Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin, or your race. So we're going to choose not to answer these. Here you're going to answer your citizenship status. Remember, your citizenship status as the student is the one that will qualify you for federal student aid. If your parents have a different citizenship status than you do, that is okay, and that will not affect your aid. So you can go ahead and answer. For these demo purposes, we're going to choose U.S. citizen or national and hit continue. It's also going to ask you if either of your parents attend or complete college. Answer based on which is the most appropriate. If you do know, you don't know, put in their status there. It's also going to ask you if your parent was killed in the line of duty. The reason they're asking this is there is a grant that could potentially be made available to you if your parent was killed in the line of duty. It's similar to the Pell Grant, but it does not have the same financial requirements as the Pell Grants. It is for students, and it is reserved for students who fall into a situation where potentially their parents were killed in the line of duty. For this demo, we are going to click no. It's going to ask you high school completion status, which will help determine your eligibility for federal student aid, which does require a high school diploma or equivalent. There are some scenarios and some specific programs at schools that may allow you to complete the FAFSA and be eligible for federal aid, even if you do not have a high school diploma. But if you are in that scenario, it's highly recommended that you discuss the situation with your financial aid office to ensure your eligibility and that you've taken the necessary steps in order to qualify for federal aid. Here, it's going to ask you which high school did you graduate from. Remember, this is a demo-only demonstration. So you just want to go ahead and pick the school where you graduated from high school. If you have the ability to type in the state, then choose the city. You can type in your high school name if you'd like. If not, you can click search and a list will pop up below. And you can pick the high school. You're going to scroll down to the bottom to hit continue. If your school is not listed, you can add it manually as well. You're going to confirm. If you clicked on the wrong one, you can go back and edit if you'd like. All right, your finances. This is you as the student, your finances, Raya's finances. We're going to go through and answer the questions. It does have an additional question. It's asking what if you have special circumstances. There is an additional question here which you can click for further assistance if you have special financial circumstances. That's not live for the demonstration site, so we cannot show you the answer to that, but you will have additional informational tools and resources for the questions being asked of you, so you can go ahead and hit continue. Now it's going to ask you about your 2022 tax return information for the 2024-2025 FAFSA. It is looking back essentially 2 years ago. You want to read through these questions and answer these questions as accurately as possible. While these situations may not apply, you will need to provide an answer. You cannot provide a blank field. So if you did not have an IRA roll over into another IRA or qualified plan, you would hit 0 to ensure you're providing some sort of an answer. However, you want to further identify different types of funds, like these rollover accounts. You do want to flag or identify what is being asked of you for each one of these questions. The reason for that, even if your information is transferred from the IRS, the FAFSA or the U.S. Department of Education needs additional information to accurately calculate your student aid index. So make sure to answer that appropriately. If the answer is 0, go ahead and indicate 0 there before you're able to continue on to the next set of questions. You're going to go through and look at student assets next, and this will ask you questions of information that you would not provide to the IRS, like the total cash, savings, or your checking accounts. You want to go through and provide these accurately, and they're also asking you as of the date that you're completing the FAFSA. So if today's Monday and you get paid on Friday, you wouldn't add in what you got paid on Friday. On Monday, you would want to put the total amount in your checking account, savings, or what you have in cash. Many students work to save towards paying for college. So you could have a significant amount in these accounts, and you want to be honest about it because it is a federal form, and lying on a federal form could get you into some hot water. And you will see that on the signature page. If you are knowingly committing fraud, what some of those criminal consequences could be. So we're going to choose for this demonstration that there's $5,000 in total cash, savings, and checking accounts. Current net worth of investments, but not the home in which you live in, not in your primary residence. And it's also asking for net worth, which is different than other types of valuing. Net worth is really looking at the value of your investments minus any debts owed against those investments. So you want to make sure you answer this accurately. Once again, you will need to provide an answer, so provide 0 if it does not apply. Small businesses, the net worth of businesses and investment firms, you want to go ahead and provide that appropriately. Keep in mind the way small businesses, or any businesses for that matter, are reported will be different for the 2024-2025 FAFSA than in years past. So if this applies to you, make sure you understand what needs to be reported for these businesses, and then go ahead and hit continue. You're now going to make your school list. So you're going to go through and choose the schools where you're thinking about applying, transferring to, whatever your situation could be. You will notice that this year you have the option to add up to 20 colleges or career schools at a time. This is not like the Common App, the application used by several hundred schools to apply, where they limit you to a total of 20 schools. The FAFSA is saying that you can choose up to 20 schools at a time. If you have more than 20 schools where you're applying, you have the ability to include them on this school list. Give FAFSA the time to process, and then send that information off to those schools. Once those schools receive your FAFSA information, you can log back in and make a correction or update your school list. You can remove schools and add other schools that have not been added in yet. So we're going to go ahead and pick some schools. We're indicating on this form that we're from New York. So why don't we look and choose schools in our area, because we don't feel like moving. That's a common scenario, but you can choose any state or any city, or you can type in the school name as well. If you notice, the fields didn't pop up until you answered the one above. If you know the school's federal school code or their OPE ID, which you can find on their website, you can go ahead and type it in directly if you already have that information. If not, you can easily just search for schools and click them through. Remember, this is a demo only, so this is just to give you an idea of what it looks like. May not be the most accurate location for some of the schools on this list, but you can choose up to 20. You can go to the other pages if they're on that list as well. So now you want to go through and look at the schools you've picked. You'll notice this flag of text at the top saying school list guidelines for New York residents. What it's telling you is if there is any reason you should be concerned on the way schools are listed or the order schools are listed on your FAFSA. For the state of New York, in order to be granted state grant aid, you have to list an eligible in-state college, but the order will not impact your eligibility. This is not true for all states. While it is true for most states that the order will not impact your eligibility. The schools you pick might impact the eligibility for your state programs, but the order does not matter. However, read that flag. It's very important because you don't want to miss out on aid or add additional steps to the financial aid process. Most states, if they have an order requirement and you're noticing you're not getting very much state aid or any at all, you do have the ability to go to that state's website, that state's financial aid website, and update your information and contact them and let them know that you should be eligible for state aid or you believe you're eligible for state aid, and can you please make some updates or fixes in order to qualify you for state aid, and they can help you with that process on that end. But it does add an extra step. So now that the FAFSA is flagging you with these state requirements, that should help you avoid that. In order to get these to list in an appropriate way, at this point in time, I don't believe there's a way to move them in the ranking. It's better to remove them all. Add the school that you know needs to be first, and then save that. And then when you get to this screen, I would recommend clicking here to search and add more schools if you'd like at that point. So we'll go through, we'll hit search. The schools list here. You see what's selected. See this Lehigh will be the last one. Hit continue. So you can go in and work with the list to make sure it's listed correctly. Most students will not need to worry about this, but at least it's flagged for you. And then hit continue. All right, so we're about to sign as the student what you have input into the student section. You can expand these all to get the ability to review all the fields. And just make sure everything's accurate. If something is not accurate, you may need to go back and edit those fields. And go through and see all the answers to your questions. Now, it's saying the invite has sent to your parent to help you continue completing your FAFSA. But first, you're going to sign and complete your section. Make sure to read all the terms and conditions on there. This information is important. I know it's easy to just click through and get through the process, but you want to make sure you read through, because if there's an issue with your financial aid at your school, they're going to flag potentially one of these situations that could have caused it. And many times what schools will hear is, I've never heard about that, or I didn't know that was a requirement, or I didn't know that would affect my aid. Well, there are situations that may not be as easy to identify or not common that aren't listed here. There could be some very real situations that are quite common that are listed here. Now, if you've never been to college before, many of these should not come into play, but if you were a student before and you're re-enrolling now and you had previous loans and maybe you were in default, or you had a grant and you were awarded too much, or you withdrew from the program and you had to pay it back, there could be a few scenarios that you have to resolve. For the most part, if this is the first time you're completing the FAFSA form and the first time you're going to college, you might not have these situations appear, but just make sure you understand them. And then remember we were talking about making sure you're honest, you're not committing fraud. If you're found to have committed fraud, there are some criminal penalties, which could include a fine or imprisonment, or both. Then you're going to sign your FAFSA. Remember, the FAFSA is a federal legal form. So you want to certify that you believe that you've answered everything accurately to the best of your knowledge, and none of this was trying to be misleading in any way. So you want to go ahead and hit sign. So you have completed the FAFSA and your parent contributor has been invited. But you just want to go through and understand that your form is not complete until all your contributors have completed their sections and signed it. Once the FAFSA form is submitted, it'll be processed after January 2024. If you notice here that you have another parent that might need to be added, or you incorrectly put in the parent's information, you can go ahead and manage your contributor information. If you need to track your FAFSA form at any time, you can go ahead and view your status and get an idea of where you are. And here's what you can do next, which is check your email, and your FAFSA is still waiting for contributor information in there. And then after everything's submitted, you can go ahead and go through your FAFSA submission summary and other things. But let's go ahead and log in as the parent. Your parent will receive an email that looks like this, saying that you've been invited to complete the FAFSA form for your child, Raya. You can go ahead and log in. Now, there is a time limit here. If you do not complete this and it passes 45 days, the work that Raya has already put in could be deleted. So you're going to go ahead and log in. You're going to use, as a parent, your own FSA ID, not your child's, yours, because you will be providing your information as a FAFSA contributor to Raya's FAFSA. Here it's going to say Raya would like your help to complete the form, and you can accept or decline the invitation. It'd be nice to go ahead, and for this demo we're going to accept. Here you're also confirming that you're agreeing to share your information to complete your child's FAFSA. It's going to go ahead and give you an intro of what to expect and some frequently asked questions. You can go ahead and review those. A lot of these can be expanded to get some answers. One of the top questions we receive: is the parent financially responsible to pay for college? The answer is no. Even providing your information on your child's FAFSA does not obligate you in any way to pay for their college education. That is your own personal choice that you would make in order to help your child. The parent now has the opportunity to review a bit of the overviews of the FAFSA and other videos and helpful tools. This is all very similar to what the student or the child initially saw. You'll see here the icon change to parent of Raya Tran. This is identifying who is now in the FAFSA. So you will be answering questions as the parent here. You can go ahead and go through the information. This will set your expectations on what you can expect. We've been hearing in some scenarios it's taking 10 minutes, 20 minutes total to complete the FAFSA, especially with everyone doing it at the same time and making sure that they're being efficient about getting it done. And what to expect after submitting, which is similar to what Raya saw when she started the FAFSA form. Because you used an FSA ID to log in, you will see that this information is pre-populated already for you. You cannot change the top section either. You would have to change your account settings or your FSA ID settings in order to update some of this information here. You can update permanent mailing address if it's incorrect here as well. Now, this is consent for federal tax, the transfer of federal tax information from the IRS. Just like the student or the child, you are required as a FAFSA contributor to give your consent for the transfer from the IRS. If you do not give the consent, the student will not be eligible for federal student aid, including grants and loans. This is required. Even if you didn't file a U.S. tax return or you didn't file your taxes at all, you are required to give consent. So you'll go through and read the terms and conditions, never sign or click OK or give authorization without reading everything thoroughly. And here is some information as well. In this situation, we do not have a spouse, but if you do have a spouse and they need to provide information, they also will need to give consent and approval to the transfer of information. Here we're going to go through the parent section, some parent demographics. Some of this is pretty clear-cut, some of it is not. But once again, we're going to do single for this demo. But this question, marital status, is always as of the day you're filing the FAFSA. This is not about any future plans or expected plans in the future. This is about current marital status. And here you will notice one more question: unmarried and both legal parents are living together. This will make it easier as you go through the FAFSA of what's expected without having to make additional edits or changes later and not be too concerned about it. So make sure to read every single answer before making your selection, because some situations apply and these answers aren't exactly what your child saw. You're going to identify your state of legal residence. You can start typing and it'll narrow down the list for you. You can choose there as well. You can choose the date. You need to identify the month and year you became a legal resident of your state. And now we're going to go into financial information of the parent. One of the reasons the FAFSA has become faster or easier to complete is with the requirement of that federal tax information transfer. There's not going to be a lot of opportunity to input additional information if the questions are being answered appropriately from the transfer from the IRS. So it's just important to note that that's one of the reasons we see a bit of faster completion rates with the FAFSA, because of that consent for that transfer from the IRS. As the parent, you're going to identify if during 2022 or 2023, if the parent or anyone in the family was receiving any of benefits from the following federal programs. This will not negatively affect you in any way. In some ways, if you do receive these benefits or someone in your household receives these benefits, it could actually qualify you for additional need-based aid, and it may limit some of the questions you see in the future. It may limit or may change the questions you see going forward. The whole thing with the electronic application on the FAFSA does have skip logic. Skip logic means that you aren't going to see questions that the FAFSA already knows the answers to. So if you answer that benefits were received, it may change or may limit the types of questions you have to answer in the future. For this demo, we're going to choose none apply. None of these apply. Now we're going to go ahead and identify family size. This question is being presented differently than it has been in the past. Before, you would identify your family size and it wouldn't assume anything from your tax returns. However, there is an opportunity to identify or include individuals who were not on your taxes that could be considered part of your family size for FAFSA purposes. You want to read this carefully. If you need to make a change, you can click yes that there is a difference from the number of individuals claimed on a tax return, and you can adjust that number and add people on there. If the answer is no, you can go ahead, hit no, and hit continue. Now it's going to ask you how many people in the parent's family will be in college. While you include the student, you will not include parents. So the answer has to be at least one, the student on the behalf of at least the student whom you're completing the FAFSA on their behalf and providing information for their FAFSA. So the answer has to be one, but the answer could be more than one if there is someone else in the family who's going to college who's not a parent, July 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. Now, you're going to refer to your tax return and answer some of these questions. What you're doing is further refining the financial information that was transferred or not transferred, depending on your situation. and being very clear so the SAI, the Student Aid Index, is calculated correctly for the student. You do need to place an answer in these questions with an open field like this. If not, you'll be required to put in something. It'll flag you. The answer can be 0, so go ahead and do that. But make sure you answer the questions accurately. It's also going to ask if your parent received earned income tax credit. For this scenario, you're going to indicate no. And then there is an optional question, but you can include grants, scholarships, AmeriCorps benefits that are reported as income to the IRS. You can identify the amount there. And then foreign earned income exclusion. If this applies, go ahead and indicate that here as well. And you're going to hit continue. Now, child support received. This is the amount of child support the parent received for the last complete calendar year, and this is going to be the total of that. This is not saying how much child support was received for the child for whom you're completing the FAFSA. This is just the total amount of child support you as the parent received in general for all your children. You would put in that information here accurately based on your information. Some other information that is not transferred from the IRS because it's not reported to the IRS, just like the student, would be the total of your cash savings or checking accounts. So you can go ahead, it does identify to not include student aid here, but you want to go ahead and put that in there as well. For this scenario, we're going to put in just a number for demonstration purposes only. This is going to ask you the net worth of investments, including real estate, but it tells you not to include the home the parent lives in. Remember, we're looking at net worth, which is further defined here. The answer can be 0, so that's okay. And then we're going to look at net worth of businesses and investment firms. Once again, net worth is what is being asked here. You'll notice for businesses, this is not looking or asking you to only report on certain businesses of certain sizes like it has in the past that had so many full-time employees. This is looking for the net worth of any business or for-profit agricultural operation. Now you're going to take a moment, just like your student did in their section, and you want to expand all and go through the answers you provided in the FAFSA to ensure they are accurate and correct. And if not, you're going to have to go through and make those changes and hit continue. Now you want to sign and submit the FAFSA form, and here you are certifying that the information you provide is true and complete and to the best of your knowledge. Once again, this is a federal form and could have penalties, criminal penalties, if you are giving false or misleading information. You can go ahead and sign and submit. Now that all FAFSA contributors for RIO Trans application have completed the FAFSA, you're getting the congratulations that RIO's FAFSA is complete. And it'll give you some of the next steps here and let you view you have the ability to view status of the student's FAFSA form here as well. Now, if there was more than one contributor, there could be a situation where another contributor is still waiting, but that final contributor will get the congratulations. Hopefully, this demonstration was helpful for you to understand what to expect on the 2024-2025 FAFSA. Make sure to follow our YouTube channel and also keep up to date on advisors.com for FAFSA information to make sure you don't miss out on financial aid to help you pay for college.